First Person Advisors is now a subsidiary of NFP, the fifth largest insurance broker in the world, combining local expertise with access to global capabilities and solutions. Learn more at firstpersonadvisors.com.
Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. I'm pleased to report that our podcast is really gaining a strong following as our library of great guests continues to grow. So I thought it would be a good time to share some of the highlights from conversations from our first few episodes. I hope you enjoy this special edition of the Business and Beyond podcast.
I'll tell you what, man, since the first day I stepped foot on this campus, I believed. Relentless focus, relentless effort, have an edge.
Indiana University head football coach Tom Allen, the homegrown Hoosier, passionate about his state, his university, and his players. He grew up in Newcastle, a basketball hotbed, but a place where Allen honed his skills on the football field, playing for his dad. He was also an all-state wrestler, a man who counts family and faith as the cornerstones of his life. Tom Allen has put IU football in the national conversation. But what makes Tom Allen tick? And what is the backstory behind the man and his mission? Find out next on the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. You generate so much national attention for IU in the program. A lot of it with your enthusiasm, really contagious, this passion that you really wear on your sleeve. Where does that passion for the game, passion for the team, where does it come from?
Oh, I think a lot of it's when it's tied up in your purpose. When you know what your purpose is and you just love what you do, and how can you not be passionate about it? I believe with my whole heart that I was put on this earth to impact lives, and that I take that very seriously. And I was modeled that by my dad, my high school coach. Just saw how he invested in people. He didn't use the phrase LEO, but he lived his life by it. And so to me, it's about understanding who you are, why you're here. And when you know that it's something way bigger than yourself, and I believe that, I believe I have a chance to impact young men to help them become who I believe they were created to be, and then live that out on a daily basis. It just creates so much energy. I do enjoy coaching football. I love the game. I love practice. I love the opportunity to be around these guys. I invest in them. I give my heart to them, and they just give it right back. So it's pretty special.
Well, you mentioned love each other. Leo, really, I think an embodiment of your passion for the game and for life. Leo grabbed national headlines this year, really became something that people connected with. But it's really been, as I understand it, really part of your life, your coaching philosophy for a long time. It just didn't happen with you this year.
No question. Yeah. Since the very beginning, I've been doing this for 28 years. My first 15 years were in high school, and 10 of those years here in Indiana at the high school level. And you can go back. Matter of fact, somebody pulled up an old clip of me talking to our Ben Davis team in 2004. And it was, you could have just changed out the coaching gear. It's the same way I talk to our guys right now. So yeah, it's not, LEO to me is a lifestyle. It's about investing in people. It's about creating an environment where they know you love them more as a person than as a player. And that it's not about just, catching touchdown passes or making tackles or making plays on the football field. It's helping you, holding you to a standard of excellence that says, I love you so much. I'm not going to let you just be average. I'm going to make you adhere to the standards and the things that are going to allow you to be great in this life, be great in the classroom, great. Yeah, obviously on the football field is part of that, but I just think you can do both. You can win football games, and you can develop character and leadership and help these guys become very, very special individuals first.
As Indiana Secretary of Commerce, he has made 61 international trips to 28 countries. But outside all of the business deals, meetings, and planning to make Indiana an economic juggernaut, you might be surprised to know that Jim Schellinger possesses a wicked wit and a strong attention to detail.
we used to joke, with 10 people in the house in one bathroom, how did you know which toothbrush to use? And I just always respond, you used the dry one. So at any rate, that was a great experience for us to grow up in that environment. And I think that when I found out that my dad was laid off, the one thing I really remember the best about it was my mom telling us, seeing my dad at home every day was very, very strange. And it not dressing up with he wore short sleeves and a tie. But the fact that they said, you find out at that point who your real friends are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You played sports in high school. Sports important to you. Ultimately went on to the University of Notre Dame, got an architecture degree. Your time at Notre Dame, what do you remember about your college days? Any funny or memorable stories that stick out to you?
Well, unfortunately, no. And I'll tell you why. I lived at home, so I never lived on campus. So they call that a townie. I worked a full-time job at a tool and die shop.
At a tool and die. Tell me about that, because I think that's fascinating all the way through college.
Yeah, when I decided, I worked the summer before I went to Notre Dame, and I asked the gentleman to keep me on. And I said, if you could keep me on, I appreciate it. And he did. And I painted a building in the summer, but then he moved me inside on the night shift, and I was a steel grinder. So all the steel that came in that the tool and die shop people would work on, I would sand the sides in the corners, deburr the holes in the slots. And it was really a messy job. And it was very, very physical. And I did that for 5 years. And it was interesting. I would never go back and trade it. It was a day-to-day thing. And I was just talking about this over the weekend. I'd kind of hang out, I was like a street person in many respects. I would just constantly take my backpack and tuck into the corner somewhere to get some sleep between classes. I never really interacted with anybody. I always felt extremely inferior being somebody from South Bend to be out there at Notre Dame. And the whole time I was there, I only went to 2 football games, over the 5 year. It's a 5-year program. I actually went to a lot when I was younger, between 8 and probably 12, when Joey Yanto, my best friend, his dad was Joey Yanto Sr. was the defensive coordinator, defensive line coach. That's my memories of football. But, there were happy memories. And probably the best of all was when I went to get my diploma. I absolutely was convinced. My mom and dad were coming to graduation, first Notre Dame person in the family. And I was just fearful that there would not be a degree in there, that I owe a bill, didn't finish a class. And I had a lot of reasons to be that concerned. And they meet in the athletic, the field house part of the ACC with the professors around that college's major. And I purposely went late. But the architects are a pretty zany group of people. So I was actually the first one there. So I visited with them and everything. And I took my diploma down a hall, same hall you see in the movie Rudy. I went down the hall, went back. I just knelt down, just squatted down and just went, man, this is not going to be good. And I just waited and finally opened it up and there was a degree in there. And I'll tell you, I think I was always a little chubby. I jumped probably 3 feet off the ground. That was probably the happiest moment of my days at Notre Dame.
Our world needs individuals who are critical thinkers, problem solvers, innovators, and who understand the value of diversity.
Wise words from an education trailblazer, a college president making history right here in Indiana. She loves to sing, slip on her pink tennis shoes, and tool around in her red sports car. She's DePauw University president, Dr. Lori White, and she's our guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Now, as proven earlier in the podcast here, you love to sing. Anywhere, shower, office, whatever it is. I'm told you love to sing. Where is the strangest place that you have broken into song?
Probably the strangest place that I have broken into song was that at my very first board meeting as the new president, I broke into song at the end of my remarks, and I don't think the board was quite prepared for a singing president.
I'm sure they were impressed, though. Now, if you were to sing on the Business and Beyond podcast, what would it sound like?
Well, I love spirituals. And as a matter of fact, I just was with my high school classmates celebrating posthumously the 100th birthday of our incredible music teacher when I was in junior high and high school. And she was the one who introduced all of us to old Negro spirituals. And so, depending on my mood, I might, break into a particular spiritual. So, for example, nobody knows the trouble I've seen, or will understand it better by and by. There's a bright side somewhere. So it really just depends on my particular mood, what song I'm inspired to sing.
Got to know about the pink shoes and your red BMW sports car.
So the pink tennis shoes, sometimes when an administrator has a big fancy title, students in particular are intimidated by developing a relationship or striking up a conversation with that person. And as I think I indicated earlier, I'm a real petite person. I'm about 5 feet tall, and I always wear really, really high heels. But when I'm walking across campus from one meeting to another, those high heels are not going to quite cut it. And so I just grabbed a pair of pink tennis shoes. And then after a while, those became my trademark. And so students would know when they saw me on campus, they're like, that's her. That's the vice president for student affairs. Or now that's the president. She's got on pink tennis shoes. I think I can probably go up and say hello to her. She doesn't seem so scary. Anybody who wears pink tennis shoes every day can't be that scary. So that just became, one of my marks of identity to students on campus. And then my red sports car. So red is my absolute favorite color. Though now that I work at DePaul, because that is the color of our rival.
Wabash, that's right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So when I turned 50 and had my, first early midlife crisis, I thought to myself, I want to buy a fancy sports car because this is the last fun car I'm going to have. I keep my cars for like 18, 20 years before I become an old lady and have to have an old lady car. And so I zeroed in. I had a BMW beforehand. I knew I wanted a convertible. And so as I started looking for the type of car that I wanted, I zeroed in on a BMW convertible, and it is really sweet.
I think it starts with the fact that my last name is Hoops. If there was ever a name that was meant to be in Indiana, it's Hoops.
In basketball terms, Leonard Hoops is a slam dunk, producing big numbers, putting Central Indiana tourism on a national stage. Did you learn anything about yourself as a leader as you look back on this? I mean, we're still in the middle of it, but what'd you learn through this process as a leader?
Well, a couple of things came to mind. Number one, I heard people referring to the "we're all in the same boat," and I didn't come up with this, but I had previously heard someone else say, "We're not all in the same boat. We're actually all in different boats in the same storm." And so for example, how a State Park Hotel Lodge was doing relative to a JW Marriott were very different boats. Some of the more rural, outdoor-oriented types of attractions were doing well under the pandemic conditions, and others weren't doing well. And so, I just wanted to figure out, how do I be the best leader I can be in our boat, given that it's not the same as everybody else's. The other thing that really hit me was that culture really matters. And if you have a strong organizational culture going into a crisis situation like this, you're certainly going to be potentially in much better shape than if you didn't. And if you don't, it would just exacerbate the situation. So I really see where we are now and feel really strongly that our organizational culture got us through to this point.
Leaders facing difficult times turn to things, maybe it's people or things for strength. Did you turn to anything as you went through those challenging times that kind of sustained you through the process?
Well, I would consider myself more spiritual than religious. That's what happens when you've got Hindus on mom's side, Presbyterians on dad's side, and you're married to a Mexican Catholic. And I went to Catholic high school and Catholic grad school, actually. So I have a lot of different perspectives. But without question, I probably prayed and had thoughtful reflection much more in the last year than I probably have in my entire life. The only other thing I can compare it to is to when my son was born, and he had a birth injury during his birth, and I got very religious while he was in the hospital.
Yeah. Having a sense of humor can help too sometimes through tough times. And you, Leonard Hoops, I found out, have a sense of humor. In fact, you've been doing stand-up comedy since high school, right?
That's true. And it all started with, we had this talent show at St. Joseph High School. And as a freshman, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and do it. And I did impressions of Howard Cosell interviewing Muhammad Ali, and it turned into Saturday Night Live types of skits. By my senior year in high school, this is absolutely true story. They had given my little troupe the entire talent show. We had the entire hour for our group by my senior year, and so it was almost a variety show. We had a music guest. I did some stand up. We did some skits, and it was really pretty dormant for decades. And then a couple of years ago, a comedian based in Indianapolis who tours nationally, Scott Long, who puts on a so-called celebrity comedy show for some good causes, asked me if I would perform in it. And I was as D-list a celebrity you could get given, my role. But I did it, and he invited me back a couple other times. And in fact, I got invited to do some non-celebrity shows at Crackers and, a couple other venues over the course of the last couple of years.
Hey, you mentioned your Howard Cosell impersonation. I think everybody thinks they have a good Howard Cosell impersonation, but yours is pretty good. Let's give it a listen.
All right. Well, we'll give it a try. It's not as good as it was when I was in high school, but Howard Cosell live at Madison Square Garden with the greatest fight of all time, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad, tell me about your fight with Joe Frazier. I'm the greatest fighter that's ever lived. I whooped Joe Frazier. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I'm the greatest, Muhammad Ali.
First Person Advisors is now a subsidiary of National Financial Partners, the fifth largest insurance broker and consultant in the world. Develop your total reward strategies all in one place with the combination of First Person's local expertise and NFP's global resources and integrated solutions. Learn more at firstpersonadvisors.com.
Well, as a kid, Ryan Vaughn, he was like most Hoosier boys. He clipped playing cards to his bike spokes, loved to shoot hoops and swim, loved romping around with his buddies on the west side of Indianapolis. Those buddies he still considers some of his best friends today. There's a lot more to Ryan Vaughn. Silver lining to a near drowning experience, he eventually became an NCAA academic All-American swimmer. The law degree, it opened doors. Politics sparked his passion for Indianapolis. Now the leader of the Indiana Sports Corporation, he is a driving force behind Central Indiana's $3.4 billion sports tourism industry. Swimming, you mentioned swimming. That's been a huge part of your life, and actually a defining moment of your childhood when you almost drowned.
Yeah, it's funny how these things work. But I was a small child up in Muncie, as I mentioned, where I was born, and kind of riding a tricycle around my grandparents' pool, like you mentioned, with the cars and the wheels, making the exhaust sound, pretending I was like the Indy 500. And it just so happened that the adults kind of stepped inside to grab some food, and I fell in. And maybe this speaks to my personality, but apparently I'm told I would not let go of the tricycle, and so I was stuck on the bottom and nearly drowned. Luckily, my dad noticed the absence of sounds and rushed in and was able to save me. But as you can imagine, at grandparents' house, that immediately resulted in one of two things: we're either filling up the swimming pool with dirt, or we're going to take Ryan to swimming lessons. And so I got to go to swimming lessons, learn to swim lessons, community swim lessons at the then newly opened IU Natatorium in the early 80s. And swimming lessons turned into neighborhood swim team, turned into high school, and then college. So it's been a really, really important part of my life for sure.
Oh, well, you mentioned college. You went on to Wabash College in Crawfordsville, one of our state's great private institutions, became an academic All-American swimmer there. So you were just not a guy on the team. You were very accomplished.
Well, I had to work my way there. I've shared probably one of the single most, if not the single most defining influence in my life during college was my swim coach, Gail Pebworth. Gary, you're familiar with Wabash, but you can imagine a female swim coach at an all-male institution barking at 18 to 22-year-olds to kind of get it together.
Right.
And I really struggled my first year of college. Honestly, my grades my first semester were not good. I was not sort of mentally prepared to tackle the rigor of Wabash, and frankly, I got really sick. I ended up having mono and left the swim team and just really struggled with purpose. And my coach just would not let go. I mean, she would call and check on me even when I wasn't on the team. She'd come by and stop by. she very cleverly asked me to come back and serve as a timer for the Wabash DePaul swim meet. And I'll never forget this moment. And you'll appreciate this. So I can't believe I'm sharing this with you because I'll never hear you. My freshman year, the DePaul swim program beat us by 1 point in that head-to-head swim meet. And after the meet was over, coach walked by and said, "Thank you for timing. Do you realize if you would have swam your worst race ever, we would have won this by 3 points?" That was all the motivation I needed to come back with some vengeance the following years.
Yeah, and you're she winning as coach, is that right? In Wabash history, Hall of Famer, obviously, just an amazing coach. But you hit on something that I think sports is so important because of what it teaches people, and these coaches are teachers, and she was a teacher for you.
Yeah, most important. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of people that probably could have critiqued my stroke or been harder on me in the weight room, but there was something about her ability to reach deeper into me and talk to me about how to grow up, how to be a man. I mean, my wife, who I have been dating since high school and was dated through college, I'll tell you, that was where the boy became a man, and it was in large part to the coaching outside of the pool from her, for sure.
You're at 1070 on your radio dial. Your favorite station for music and news. We hope we'll always be the friendly voice of Indiana, WIBC.
When Jeff Smulyan heard this classic radio jingle, he was just a young boy pedaling his bike around his North Side Indianapolis neighborhood, never dreaming he'd one day own the legendary WIBC radio, and then go on to become a trailblazer in the media industry, a U.S. ambassador, and owner of a Major League Baseball team. Entrepreneurship is in Jeff Smulyan's blood. Well, you returned in 1973 to Indy. Your dad, I think, had purchased WNTS radio station for about $400,000, right? And you were the VP and GM of the station. And one of your employees back then was a guy by the name of David Letterman. Right?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
What was it like? What was he like?
Dave was great. Dave was the weekend weatherman at Channel 13, and my brother said, "You got to hire Letterman." And we knew each other peripherally. He had gone to Broad Ripple. David's 5 days younger than me, and we hired him, and when he took the job, he said, "Look, I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to take a chance to go to California and see if I could be a writer and a comedian." He was brilliant. The problem was, he was doing talk, and talk radio has always been the province of 65 and 70-year-olds. And here you got a 25-year-old guy who's basically, talking about my favorite memory was coming back from lunch one day, and I got a call from an irate listener, and he said, Letterman, he's a communist. And I said, "Well, why is he a communist?" Well, he said, I called him and said, "The communists are taking over Carmel." And he said, "You got to let them have Carmel." He said, "The schools are overcrowded and the roads are always a mess and traffic's awful. You got to give them Carmel. Let's hold the line at Nora." And I mean, that was Dave. And I'll never forget. He, one day he said, "Look, I've got big news. The city of Indianapolis has sold Monument Circle to Guam, and we're going to replace it with 150-foot asparagus." And I mean, we had people call and say, "You can't do that. How can you get rid of it?" But I mean, it was just, one day he said the 500-mile race, people are complaining about sitting in the turn, so they're going to make it all straight away and the race will be from here to Kansas City. And we had people calling saying, "Hey, I'd like, can I get tickets in like Effingham?" I mean, it was absolutely brilliant. My friend David Clapper, who's one of the founders of the Finish Line, was working at his dad's liquor store. And he used to listen all day. And he said, "There's about 50 guys in town who do nothing but listen to Letterman all day when they're working."
Wow.
And the problem was all the 25-year-olds absolutely loved him. And the 65-year-olds thought, "The guy's a Bolshevik." So it taught me a lot about the available audience.
That is outstanding. What, any other lessons learned with that first, managing that first station?
Yeah, I learned to get over my fear of failure. It was an impossible task, and I think I realized that. I joke we were going up against WIBC. We had a daytime station on the wrong end of the dial, 1590. We had to sign off in the winter at 5:30 at night. WIB. I used to joke we were doing news in the morning, and I said, we could hire Walter Cronkite as our morning newsman, and 90% of Indianapolis would say, forget Cronkite. Fred Heckman's the only guy with any credibility.
Martha Hoover, a giant on the Indiana restaurant scene, on the pandemic's impact, and what a seat at the table looks like now. Her passion for food, well, she traces it back to a trip to Paris, paid for by babysitting money. She put her culinary dreams aside, instead graduating law school, and then working as a sex crimes prosecutor. But that nagging desire to open a restaurant never left. The incredible journey of Cafe Patachou's Martha Hoover on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast. Well, as mentioned, you got your law degree at IU, went on to work at the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, took a break to stay at home with your children after your second child. As you mentioned, you didn't know it, you were pregnant with child number 3 when you got this restaurant bug. We're going to get into those early restaurant days in a moment. But first of all, the ticking sound we hear now is our 2-minute drill. Martha, we're asked some quick questions, get your quick answers to some of the day's most pressing questions. So are you ready?
It's a good thing I had coffee today.
Exactly. Okay, let's start out. How about a favorite book? Are you reading something right now that you really like?
I am. I just started it actually last night. It's a book called, I have the book right on my table, Between Two Kingdoms. I do this thing, Gary, where I have 2 or 3 books at the same time, but that's just the one that rose to the top this morning.
Yeah, big reader. Okay, how about a favorite snack?
Oh, easy. Chips, any kind of chip. I am a chip freak.
Good. How about a favorite meal? A dinner, a meal. What would that be?
Well, I know I should say things like anything I cook when my family's home. Truly, I'm a very simple cook. So yes, our typical Sunday family meal when my children were all home was always a roasted chicken with some form of a beautiful salad and a potato dish and a lovely dessert.
Yeah. Do you have a pet peeve? What would your biggest pet peeve be?
People who don't put in the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When it comes to wine, red or white?
Clear. It's called vodka.
Very good. I like that. Dog or cat?
I love all animals, but I have to admit I'm partial to dogs. Dogs.
Okay. How about, do you remember favorite TV show? Did you have a favorite TV show as a kid?
Oh, growing up when I was in college, this is so corny, I loved Mary Tyler Moore Show.
That was a great show. The one person outside of your family, is there one person who you feel has really had the most impact or influence on your life?
Well, there's so many people who have, everyone has an influence on my life. I would say in terms, I really can't say just one person. I wish.
Okay. Yeah. How about, here's one for you. You're having dinner at home in one of your restaurants. Are there 3 people, either living or deceased, who you would most like to share a meal with?
Oh my God, yes. Okay, let's see. Let's start at the top. Julia Child, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I only get one more choice.
One more, yeah.
Robin Williams.
Oh, that is an interesting one.
Take what you have learned here at Notre Dame and let it enable you to go forth and do good. Always be generous with your time, your talent, and all you have in your family life, your professional life, your spiritual life, every day of your life. Never forget that your charge as Notre Dame graduates is to be a force for good in the world.
Graduates from one of the world's elite universities hearing a powerful message from their president. Build community the Notre Dame way. Father John Jenkins has a deep appreciation for community and Notre Dame. He grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, the third oldest among Harry and Helen Jenkins' 12 children. He earned 2 degrees from Notre Dame, was ordained a priest on campus, and now serves as the university's 17th president. How did growing up in that large family, do you think, impact you? You were one of the oldest of the kids, maybe had to shoulder a bit more of the workload, the responsibilities for your brothers and sisters. Did that environment shape you in the man you are today?
It did. I think, in any leadership role, in this one or really anything, you're dealing with people. You have all the other issues, but the main thing is you're dealing with different personalities, different people, and you're trying to come together and work together. That was a daily lesson. That big family was a daily lesson in doing that, because, your folks they couldn't spend time, they couldn't manage everything. So the kids had to kind of manage it. And that was a great lesson in how you deal with people and the challenges there, but the rewards and how you work together and how you overcome obstacles. So, in an odd way, Jerry, is a great question, because of all the things I've done that's helped me to serve in this role as president of this large and great institution. It's dealing with a lot of people when I was young and kind of working through the problems.
What I read where one of the great things you said your parents taught you or allowed you to do, and all of your brothers and sisters to do, was do what you wanted to do, was pursue, the path that you wanted to go on. How did that play out for you?
Oh, they were great at that. I never felt any pressure to do this or do that. You're kind of, but great support and to choose your path. And so that was, there was freedom there, and there was a sense of autonomy, but you never felt like you were on your own. You felt they were going to support you no matter what you did. And I think that was one of the best things I could have had, just that freedom. Look, I'm on my own. I got to work this out. But at the same time, I know these people love me and they're going to support me whatever I do. There's no better preparation than that.
Yeah, I got to ask you about some of your jobs. So back in Omaha, I read where you had jobs, I think maybe in Christmas break, working in the stockyards. Is that right?
I did. I worked at a meatpacking plant, and oddly, it was dirty work. It was stinky work, frankly, and it was hard work. But it was a great work, because you dealt with such an array of people. I mean, it's all classes, all backgrounds, and my dad sort of had this idea that we should get summer jobs. But I think it was such a brilliant idea, because you're just forced to deal with just an array of people, and what could be a better education than that? And just understand people's backgrounds and where they're coming from. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. And the value of hard work, to be sure. When it came time to college, you selected Notre Dame. I think you had an older brother maybe who went to Notre Dame. But your dad, I think some others stayed home, went to Creighton. What tilted you toward Notre Dame?
Well, I think it was a desire to just, you strike out on my own. Notre Dame is such a great place, and it attracted me there, a respected institution. But it was also, it was even more when I got here. It shaped me deeply. But just that sense of being on my own and striking out on my own, I think that was a good decision. And I'm very fortunate to have attended Notre Dame.
Thank you for joining us on this special edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. You can listen to all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7 at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. We'll see you next time.